or no matter how much society doesn't like to look at that stuff and everything seems fine on the surface, whatever emotional turmoil and trauma that has not been healed is going to pass on to the world around you, the people around you, your kids. It's just how it goes. Continue to build those boundaries based on your awareness with resources around you, and just in doing that, you have broken your generational trauma. There's more to keep doing, and there's more skills to learn, and there's more wisdom to gain by having awareness and taking action to set a boundary in place that you know is going to help you in the long run. All those steps are so much more than you realize, because those will all lead to decisions in your life that will ultimately change everything. If you have the awareness, you're not trapped. It's just a matter of what to do with it. Okay, so currently I'm sitting at the park and it's really bright. I actually should get my sunglasses out. Hold on. All right. A group of middle school boys just walked by being like, "She's recording herself," and like trying to jump in the background here. So had to wait for them to pass, but I think we're all good now. I wanted to talk about something that I was just thinking about, which is generational trauma and how prevalent of an issue that's been in my life. And I think a lot of young people are struggling with the same thing at this age, which can be a really hard thing to navigate. I have felt personally pretty isolated in my journey with it. There's a TikTok of this guy, I think I saw this honestly like 2 or 3 years ago, but he explained what it feels like to have a parent that's an immigrant and having been raised by them and sort of living by their morals and the ways that they have taught us to live. I'm gonna insert it here and I'll put his username as well.
This generation fucked up. Each one have depression, taking pills and anxiety.
This is the problem with immigrant parents, okay, is that they're so hell-bent on their own ways and they think old is gold, okay? The reason why our generation has to take medicine or go to counseling and this and that is because we're breaking the trauma that you've handed down to us. This annoying thing, especially in my culture, where it's like, oh, my mother's a strong woman because she took all the abuse from my father. That's not a strong woman. That's just a woman who had to take it and endure it. My grandmother was beaten by her husband every day. My father had to witness that stuff. And then my father carried that on, he never once touched my mum, but like beating his own kids. So this thing always trickles down. And yes, it will get to a stage where one generation will be like, enough is enough. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to put the work in. I don't even know why I'm getting upset. And this is the problem, is that we have this thing where it's like old is gold, or everyone's messed up, this new generation, so we can soften. No, we're not. We're just putting in the work. We're fixing things, which is hard. I'll be honest with you right now. It's very easy to punch someone, to hit someone, to get mad. It's very hard to just sit there and think, what do I need to do next? And every counseling session I go to, there's so many moments where I'm like, my father should be here. This shouldn't be me, that I have to take on all this responsibility and all of this pain to fix the problems that they caused. And this is what immigrant parents do. Yes, it's beautiful, it's great, you guys gave us so much, but you guys also have to accept that you've given us this bad thing as well. And she goes on her post about, oh, I had 13 brothers and sisters and I would ask my mum, where would I sleep? Is that normal? Is that a good thing? No, obviously not. A respective and a responsible parent wouldn't have too many kids that they couldn't look after, to the point where their own child has to then ask, am I sleeping on the floor today or on the bed? That's not a flex. So this is the thing, and I hate this because so many young people are going to watch this and be like, oh, I need to be more grateful. Yes, be grateful to your parents. My parents are amazing. But also you have to acknowledge that there are things that they have done wrong, and they need to look into that. And if my father wasn't as stuck in his old ways, I think I'd still have a dad. And I apologize. I didn't think this TikTok would be that hard to do, but
seeing that made me realize, oh my God, wait, I mean, I know I was not the only one with that issue, but it just made me realize how relatable this actually kind of is. I think why I say, oh, it's so prevalent at this age is because this is the age that we are now becoming adults and choosing how we want to live our lives and the people that we want to be in this world, how we want to show up, what type of friend we want to be, what type of girlfriend or boyfriend or partner we want to be, what do we want to do for a living? Do we want to get an education? How are we going to move about our life? And does it look different from the ones that came before us? I am a first generation child. I grew up in a household with somebody who was from a different world than I am, it feels like. Seeing how my dad grew up has just put a lot into perspective for me my whole life. I've always been told to be grateful for the things that I have because they're such a luxury in comparison to what he grew up with or what my family grew up with. That perspective has affected me in a lot of ways. On the positive side, it has given me the perspective of what it's like to grow up in the Western world versus other countries where so many opportunities are limited and quality of life and the standard for living is just completely opposite. Things that me or my friends or people that I grew up with just could not imagine. That perspective has been helpful, and it makes me more familiar with the idea of keeping gratitude in my life as like a practice and as something that I really prioritize when it comes to creating a life that you want to live. No matter like what book you read or whoever self-help guide you follow, you will come across the idea of gratitude and how important it really is. And whenever I used to hear all that, like, oh, it's important to be grateful, I just kind of was like, yeah, I mean, obviously, but okay, you know, like, I'm grateful, but then what? If you're trying to bring a new career into your life, or if you're, oh my goodness, hi, hello. Where's your owner? Where's your owner? Hi. Oh, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Making any sort of change in your life, whether you're trying to bring in a new career or a new car or whatever, you know, it could be physical, emotional, you're trying to bring confidence into your life, whatever it is, gratitude is the first step. It is the foundation for any sort of change in life, because if we can't find, oh my God, there are so many cute puppies. Oh my God, there's a pug, wiener dog, and Australian shepherd all running around together. It is so adorable. This looks like it's right out of a movie. Finding that gratitude, it allows us to see where that change already kind of exists in our lives, if that makes sense. My dreams felt very separate from my reality for a long time, and it wasn't until I really implemented that state of gratitude for just waking up in the morning, for being able to take deep breaths, to be able to see the smile on my mom's face, or have lunch with a friend, or the ability to read a book, like all these tiny, tiny, minuscule things. Finding gratitude in them just starts to snowball into finding gratitude for the rest of your life. And you realize that no matter how many things are making you miserable, no matter how much of that exists, there are all these other things that exist. And it's really just about where we're placing our focus. I mean, it's sort of natural that anything that you focus on, it's gonna take over more of your mind and life. And if you're dedicating your focus to the things that you love and the things that you're grateful for, then that rule applies there as well. Being raised by somebody who had such an opposite lifestyle as me has made me more prone to gratitude, I think, or at least I've chosen for it to be that way. I'm grateful for so many things that it's provided me with. This perspective of understanding a different culture and language and food, and having that be such an integral part of my upbringing is amazing. And I am so grateful. It's made me who I am. But of course, we need to acknowledge some of the complexities here. It's a nuanced thing. It's not just, oh yeah, you know, grateful for that perspective. Like, of course, that is my big takeaway at the end of the day, but there is more to say. And I feel like I started noticing these complexities when I was about maybe like 18, maybe 17 actually, 16, 17, 18. That was the time when it kind of started to become more prevalent. It's easy to kind of generalize Asian parents as a whole, like when it comes to academia and work ethic and all of that. But I can't say I had a super traditional experience in that way. It was more so the cultural differences kind of manifested in intense, deeper arguments. Navigating emotions is something that I wasn't necessarily taught because the person I was being raised by didn't have those tools within themselves to teach themselves how to regulate anger or how to process trauma. Like, none of that. I can't really blame somebody who was in survival mode their whole life for not healing the things that maybe would have been really beneficial to heal before you have a child. These wounds are passed down from people that I didn't even get to meet. I mean, conflicts that happened that caused trauma, whether that be domestic abuse, just violence in general, witnessing war, immigrating from country to country. These things are life-altering and can really just completely alter your brain chemistry and how you live in the world. And I know that my grandfather and grandmother, just the things that they went through, you know, they didn't have the tools to pass down to a child. Okay, this is how you work through your emotions. No, all the stuff that they went through manifested into these kind of like conflicts and struggles that they then passed down onto their kids in the form that it was passed on to them, like whether that's violence, abuse, like verbally, all of the pain that was within them, they naturally and subconsciously pass it down to their kids. And then if you have a lot of kids, that makes for a lot of suffering in those ways. Like, you're passing down your suffering to a whole new generation of people who are now going to be suffering in their own new ways, and then they're going to pass it down to the rest. That's when it gets tricky, you know, because of course, like, the whole argument of nature versus nurture, there are tons of people who come from so much turmoil that end up being wiser and more emotionally intelligent because of it. So I'm not saying that your circumstances necessarily dictate your capabilities, but they definitely do affect it. And I think that I have witnessed the pain from long ago in my family, a different world that I can't even imagine being passed down to grandfather, grandmother, my father, then me, right? So do those same pains and struggles look like the exact same ones that my father had? No, but of course he subconsciously, the things that he was holding on to that he wasn't able to heal himself or didn't know how to or didn't want to, those things naturally get passed down to me through different forms. They can't be passed down in the exact same way with the things that he went through, but they're going to be passed down to me in the ways that they can. There's this one Tame Impala song that I love, Posthumous Forgiveness, where he's talking about his father who has passed, and he's just like telling him all the things that he wished he could have told him. And he says, what does he say? And I know you've got demons, I know you got demons, I know you got demons, I've got some of my own, think you pass them along. I know that's such a simple lyric, but that song, I really resonate with that song. And a parent has their intense demons, no matter how much you try to shove them down, or no matter how much society doesn't like to look at that stuff and everything seems fine on the surface. Whatever emotional turmoil and trauma that has not been healed is going to pass on to the world around you, the people around you, your kids. It's just how it goes. I'm not going to get into the specifics of how it's been passed down to me, but there have definitely been some traumatizing events, to say the least. And I think that generational trauma just looks different for everybody, so I don't think it's helpful for me to talk about the specifics of my journey. But I think the shared feeling that I'm trying to put emphasis on is feeling isolated and feeling like there is a massive burden and pressure on yourself to alleviate this weight of pain from you and your family. Like, at least that's what I felt. I felt like I have been gifted with some sort of, just being born in the United States, have been gifted with the resources to be able to process my life and trauma better than maybe those before me were able to. I know that, like, the reason that I'm a writer in the first place, or that I want to create art to connect with other people in this world, like, the driving force is in order to process my feelings that I didn't really feel like I could process elsewhere. It's just really important to remember that even though those burdens that are passed down to you feel very isolating you're not alone. There are so many people who are going through the same thing, and it's just such an interesting, complex place to be, growing up in a place that your family wanted you to grow up in, but they also want you to live by structures and beliefs that they built in a different environment. So it's a tricky thing to navigate, and I think it's hard to balance the approval of your parent. I know in a lot of Asian cultures, and specifically my own, respecting the people that you were raised by and respecting your parents and your elders is very important. So even though a lot of my friends maybe have seen the hardships I've gone through and are like, why do you still talk to your dad? It's like, well, that respect is just always inevitably there, and that's just not really something I can assimilate to, I guess. Like, I can't really just adopt all of the Western beliefs, even though maybe some of them are healthier than others. I don't know. It's a hard, nuanced thing. It can feel so daunting to break these patterns. I think the first thing is having the awareness. If you have the awareness that the patterns in your own family are unhealthy and you don't want to be a part of that, that awareness is key. That is key. That is your key to change and to breaking those patterns. I need to stop looking around, but I can't lie, I'm getting a little bit insecure. Okay, no. But having awareness is number one. Sometimes that awareness can feel isolating in itself because it's like, I know this is bad, but I don't really know what to do about it, and it's really confusing, and the world tells me one thing, but my parents tell me the other thing, and it's scary. It's a scary place to be in. So having that awareness is really number one, even though it can feel really scary. Like, I remember whenever I first started doing more intensive therapy, I actually hated it, even though I am somebody who, clearly likes to talk about my emotions. I did not like going to therapy because it was just, my therapist, she's, obviously very psychoeducated, and she would just kind of pass that education on to me, being like, yeah, so this is exactly what's happening in your household, and yeah, you're actually a victim to this and this, and it just felt like I felt offended, I felt insulted, I felt kind of hopeless now that all of these psychological definitions were being given to the confusions that I had in my life. The awareness of knowing what was wrong didn't always feel helpful, but it was what I needed in order to make any sort of change. But then having the awareness while also coexisting with people that carry on those patterns, like, for example, if you are aware of what's wrong, but then you also are in a circumstance where you have to continue to live with your family, or maybe you want to live with your family, or you want to take care of them, or this and that. And that's something that personally I have had a lot of experience in. If you are physically safe and your life is not being threatened, and you are in a situation where you have to live with your family, having that awareness is even more important, because that is what's going to be the foundation for your boundaries. Boundary is a word that can have a lot of meanings. It can look like separating yourself from a situation. It can look like communicating what you need to somebody else. I think that it's different depending on the situation or the circumstance. If you are living with your family, those boundaries might look different than they are if you are living in another state or another country or whatever. I'm just speaking from a point of being in close proximity with this family, being in close proximity with your family, creating those boundaries. It's all up to you and what makes you feel healthy and safe. And sometimes that's not always the easiest thing to do. I know for me, I am really close with my family, and I love opening up about everything and talking about everything and getting advice and trying to emotionally connect. I like doing that with all the people in my life, but I've realized that I needed to put a boundary there. I couldn't share everything about what I was going through. Even though I wanted to be close and supported and connected, I knew that it was best for myself to take a little bit of space in that way and to deal with those things and make those connections in other places where the intentions that I had were going to be reciprocated instead of thrown back at me in a moment of weakness, So creating boundaries with your vulnerability, creating boundaries with your space and time. Maybe you start going on walks more to get out of the house, or if you're able to spend time with other people, you do that. that, or maybe you dedicate yourself to a passion you love, or your career or school or anything. Like, looking at the resources that you have around you is huge. And I know that we all have a different set of resources readily available to us, but there's always something, and it's a big deal to find the people that you can confide in, or find the passions or hobbies or things that you love to spend your time doing. Therapy is also not something that is accessible to everybody, which is just makes me upset, because I've had issues financially with even being able to get therapy. Even now, it's difficult. But I think, of course, like, not everybody is certified and licensed, so you definitely do have to use your judgment and be careful. But the amount of creators on the internet that have helped me adopt new mindsets and have helped me find motivation is actually crazy. I have so much respect and love for people that I listen to on YouTube, to podcasts that I listen to some of my favorite songs that get me through hard times, like different media, books. Like, there is an abundance of knowledge at our fingertips at all times. I think just really diving into that and finding refuge in the fact that other people have gone through what you have gone through. Maybe your friends haven't, or the people in your immediate environment, but there are people all over the world who know what it feels like to be going through what you're going through. And if you're able to just start searching on YouTube, to go to the library, you can find resources. That's the tricky thing with social media. Of course, it can be like a scary comparison, attention span ruiner, but it also can be a place where people can connect. I have kind of parasocial relationships with some of my favorite creators because they really have helped me, and I don't know what I would do without that in some of my darkest moments. It's just really utilizing every resource you can to build that awareness, continue to build that awareness, continue to build those boundaries based on your awareness with resources around you. And just in doing that, you have broken your generational trauma. There's more to keep doing, and there's more skills to learn, and there's more wisdom to gain by having awareness and taking action to set a boundary in place that you know is going to help you in the long run, or listening to an audiobook or a podcast or reading something that is going to help you see things and see the world a little bit differently. Like, all those steps are so much more than you realize, because those will all lead to decisions in your life that will ultimately change everything. If you have the awareness, you're not trapped. It's just a matter of what to do with it. I've come to a point where, like, I'm only 22. I have so much more to learn. I have so much more to do and to figure out. And sometimes that can feel really overwhelming. But at the same time, I am grateful for my generational trauma because it has given me the opportunity to use it as a gift. I'm not grateful that this person did this horrible thing to me. None of that. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to gain strength and to utilize resources around me in a way that I never would have if I didn't have the struggles that I do. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to choose to deepen my perspective and to choose to grow at the end of the day. It's so important to process the anger and the hurt that we feel, but that anger and that hurt doesn't have to be resentment at the end of the day. I choose to have a relationship with my family despite the differing morals or whatever it is, because I want to cherish my family and I want to cherish the culture that I came from. And it sucks that I wasn't taught the things I wish I was, or that I wasn't taken care of in the ways that I wish I was. It is our responsibility to take care of our trauma. And I think it's a lot easier to resent people who have hurt you and to blame others, which, don't get me wrong, others need to be held accountable. Violence, abuse in any form is not excusable. There's no excuse for it. But at the end of the day, our trauma is our responsibility, even if that is a hard pill to swallow. We can't just sit with it. I mean, we can, but then we're gonna pass it down again, right? So it's like, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. Even though it can feel like a very heavy responsibility, it can be something that ultimately makes us better, wiser, healthier, and stronger in the long run. We can use our strength to make it a gift for ourselves. I'm starting to see the ways that I am now differing from my family and how my thought patterns have become different, and just like how I am growing up in this way. I'm choosing to build a mindset and a life full of habits that are taking me away from patterns that I believed that I was stuck in forever. Even if the circumstances seem impossible, even if, you are in a household with people who you're very different from, or whatever it is, there is always a way to make change, utilizing the resources that maybe the ones before you didn't have in order to heal. And it doesn't have to be a really scary, isolating, long journey. My wish is to find a community of people who know what this feels like and to help support each other, because it's hard. It is hard, but it's valuable to talk about it. So I hope that this touched someone's heart who has gone through the same thing or something similar. And if not, that maybe you learned something. Thanks for letting me chat to you in a park full of quite a lot of people. It's a beautiful day. Keep the gratitude, even if you're just grateful for having fingers or having a phone to watch this video. Or maybe you're grateful for the weather, or maybe the bed you're laying in while you watch this, or the headphones you're using to watch this, or the brain you have to comprehend any of this information that I'm spewing out in such a unorganized fashion. I wish you luck, whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.